didn't say them, they schooled me to some niggas that you knew from back when you was clocking minor figures. Now they heard you blowing up like nitro, when they wanna stick the knife through your windpipe slow. So thank fame for warning me, cause now I'm warning you. I got the Mac, nigga, tell me what you gonna do.
Damn, niggas wanna stick me for my paper. Damn, niggas wanna stick me for my paper. Damn, niggas wanna stick me for my paper. Damn, niggas wanna stick me for my paper.
Peace family, it's your boy Tariq Bey, Smoke and Grow Rich in the building. I'm here at the historic Greenwood District, Black Wall Street, with Black Wall Street business owner.
That's right.
Live in the flesh. My man Cleo, we here at his business's establishment, the Black Wall Street t-shirts. When we do the tour, definitely the first stop. What's going on, Cleo?
What's going on, man?
Oh man, you know, this is crazy, man. I feel it's almost like this feel like a crime scene to me, man.
Yeah, crime scene, home, ancestors speaking to us, you know, as always. Man, it's an honor for you to come back, man.
Man, you know, I first came here maybe about a month ago. I told him I was having this reoccurring dream.
Right.
And in the dream, me and my daughter, we was walking in the neighborhood. It was a nice neighborhood. We happy, everything cool. And all of a sudden, these airplanes start flying above us, dropping bombs. And I wake up in a cold sweat. I'm like, yo, what the fuck was that?
Right.
And I just seen this movie Watchmen, and it showed what happened on Black Wall Street.
Right.
I mean, it was some good visualization. So I said, man, I gotta take a trip and come down here. So we hit the road, we came here. This is one of the first stops. And while I was here, I met one of your customers was actually, she had the same feeling that drew her down here.
Right.
She was from my hometown. We never met each other. We met into the store.
True
I said,
story.
I said, man, there's something about this. It's almost like we've been here before, and the ancestors, or one of our ancestors was here, and God knows what happened to them, because they're still finding bodies.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they're still finding bodies till this day, man. So tell me, man, how was it for you know, growing up in Tulsa, man? And did you, man, when you were a little guy, when you was little, have you ever heard of this?
Yes. 1975. 1975. There was a group of us, about 4 of us. I was 9 and a half when I first heard of Black Wall Street. I was up on the hill over here, Ben Hill Park. You got Sandpipe Hill, historic, and then you got Ben Hill Park. We were at the top of the hill, and this older guy comes out. He's about 67, 70-ish. And man, it was an urgency coming from his voice to say, hey, young bloods. First time I heard young bloods. He's like, man, y'all come over here. I need to tell y'all something. And this man just started breaking down, man. First time I seen a grown man cry. He broke down. He said, do y'all know y'all on holy ground? And I didn't know what holy ground meant, but it was kind of scary to me the way he said it. And we said no. So he began us to tell the story of the tragedy of what happened. What's going on? He began to tell the tragedy of how they dropped bombs out of airplanes. And I, you know, at 9 and a half, in 75, you trying to wrap your head around if there were planes back then.
There was a great shadow in the sky, and upon a second look, we discerned that this cloud was caused by fast approaching airplanes. It then dawned upon us that the enemy had organized in the night and was invading our district, the same as the Germans invaded France and Belgium.
Sound like a movie, right?
Yeah. And then he began to tell how they began to tell how the army military came down and used submachine guns up on top of the hill and just started shooting our people down.
At approximately 9:15 a.m., the National Guard troops from Oklahoma City arrived by train.
In all my experience, I've never witnessed such a scene. 25,000 whites armed to the teeth were ranging through the city in utter and ruthless defiance of every concept of law and righteousness. Motor cars bristling with guns swept through the city, their occupants firing at will. General Charles buried.
And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And so he said they killed women, they killed babies, kids, they killed, I mean, just onslaught of black people. Bodies laying out in the street, charred bodies. Man, it was a frightening experience.
So this brother was there?
He was there. He was a survivor. He had to. He said they killed his people. And he was just crying. He said, please don't forget. Tell this story. That was 1975. It messed my head up. So I kept that quiet. You know, I didn't tell nobody what had happened. But in the 90s, I began to talk about it because it started, you know, people start talking about it here and there. So I did an investigation on myself. I went to Rudisill Library here in North Tulsa, and man, I've seen newspaper clippings. It was horrific. It was horrific. And so that's been forever etched in my mind.
Man. When I first came here, I was expecting more. I'm like Black Wall Street, I'm thinking, I got to the bridge,
right?
And I'm looking for the rest of it. But then when I read, it was 35 blocks.
Yeah. Radius.
35 block radius.
Yes.
So basically, I mean, because there's some tracks up there, right?
Yeah.
So that's where they had that's where they laid down the barrel. Well, when they was defending themselves, they were setting up a defense perimeter right there to keep the invaders out.
Yeah.
Blacks retreated to the Greenwood district where they set up a barrier at the railroad tracks and were able for a short time to keep whites from invading their community. But because they were so outnumbered and outgunned, whites eventually broke through the railroad tracks and invaded what was home to Black Wall Street, the Greenwood district.
This was the result. 35 city blocks of the black neighborhood burned to the ground. Historical photos show black residents shot dead in the streets. The historical account is that at least 300 people were killed.
There were children that were here that had been armed by their parents, that had been told that they could come down to Greenwood and shoot and kill an innocent person.
Yeah, because this is the main historic. If you see this shirt here, this shirt just came out.
And you got yours too, man. It's crispy too.
You know, and that you couldn't have planned for this because we just did this like today. That was a test shirt. So you got the one and only shirt that has the gold on it. No, there's no other shirt. We're not making a shirt with gold, historic Greenwood. That's it. So that's weird how you just popped up today.
I ain't not weird about this no more.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna give that shirt away. But yeah, so they built barriers at the railroad tracks. And there was a lady who was across the street. She started warning the black community that a white mob was coming.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know about that. And I can't remember the lady's name. But yeah, from the railroad tracks, 35 to 40 block radius was Black Wall Street. That's almost 3.5 miles.
On some of the buildings, you can still see some of the charred bricks. I mean, so in 1921, the ride started that way, towards those train tracks. The tracks separated Greenwood from White Tulsa. And the brothers back then, most of them were World War I veterans. They were heavily armed, so they set up a perimeter there to fight off the invaders. You know, they did their thing, but they ran out of ammunition. And not to mention, the state of Oklahoma cheated. They sent in the National Guards. They sent in airplanes, dropping bombs on these people. They had machine guns planted on hills, surrounding this area, pointing down in the community, firing away, laying people to waste. This is a crime zone. This is still a crime zone. So the businesses wasn't just on this street. It was on Archer,
Man,
the whole.
It was on Archer. It was on what they call MLK. That used to be Cincinnati. It was on Elgin. It was on Lansing. Lansing was a whole other Black Wall Street, which is just 4 blocks that way that went another mile back around. So, I mean, you had Lansing, you had Main Street, you had so many streets that encompassed Black Wall Street, but Greenwood, so from Archer to Pine is a whole mile that you had literal buildings on both sides for a whole mile. A whole mile. Now, I'm saying that because I seen that. I remember playing in these buildings, coming up Greenwood where the railroad track was still in the middle of the street. And it split off at one of the triangular hotels that was still up at the time. I went to Charles S. Johnson Elementary School, never knew that it was the original Booker T. Washington High School.
Oh, really? So they just erased it and renamed it?
Yeah, and what you see now, the OSU Tulsa campus is where Charles S. Johnson used to be.
So how long that school was there? I seen that nice, pretty campus out there.
It's been probably, I'm gonna say 10 to 15 years. It ain't been there.
So that school's sitting on hollow ground?
It's sitting on hollow ground.
That these people weren't paid or compensated for?
Yeah, well, you heard of urban renewal, right? We call it urban renewal. So white corporate America here used that to draw up their fabricated papers to say that, you know, these houses are condemned for blocks and blocks.
But Tulsa's whites gave them something. Promises.
Now, in fact, after the riot, the city's white establishment said it was going to rebuild Greenwood. What happened?
They lied. Not a dime. They proceeded to pass a fire ordinance that said, in effect, that you cannot build on property that had been burned. They wanted to starve blacks out of the land. They made it known to all philanthropic groups, we don't want your money. We would take care of our own. And there would be no problem. They spoke. They lied.
Courts and insurance companies paid some damage claims filed by whites. All black claims were rejected. A grand jury filed no charges against whites. 57 blacks were indicted for rioting. And in fact, they'd put up one hell of a fight.
And once they condemned these houses, which a lot of them could have been redone, but of course you condemn some, you got to tear it down, and you know, who can afford, and they raised the property taxes and all of that, and they start making their moves and plans. That's what happened. This highway here that you see, it would be to the viewers right, my left, that was put in here late 70s. And so that's gentrification right there.
So the highway came up in the 70s?
Yeah, this came up in the 70s.
Straight. They didn't do it on that side of the track.
They didn't do it on that side of the track. They did it right on Greenwood. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and they rezone stuff?
Rezone, red line. I mean, just all kind of stuff.
So what do you think? So after that happened, after the 1921 race war, people just never came back, or what happened?
A lot of people leave. I got a book in there that's free to the public of all the black townships.
It's like 50 of them, huh?
Oh man, it's so I can't even keep count of them.
Just in Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, this is just in Oklahoma. And so these townships, after the race massacre, a lot of blacks just scattered, and they went to these different townships, you know, and like Bowley, Tabb, Slick, Oklahoma, Tallahassee, Redbird. I mean, just so many of them that encompass you know, where blacks were thriving. Summit, you know, it's so many of them. But then Of course, you know, when the jobs ran out, you know, blacks started leaving these small towns. But Greenwood tried to be revived back in the 40s and 50s, and they were doing real good. But of course, the 60s and early 70s came, then there was a change.
Now, you know, me studying the, you know, the situation, what happened. So doing my research, the Klan was very heavy out here.
Right.
Did you feel their presence growing up? Do you still feel their presence as far as behind the scenes, keeping the community? Because it seemed to me like when we was doing our own thing, we had our own economy. That was a threat. It was more of a threat of us having our own economy because that's real independence.
Right.
You know, so once that was destroyed, now we have to integrate into their economy.
Right.
And it seems like it never came back for some reason.
Yeah.
Do you think it's still a present under the scenes in Tulsa that's still trying to keep, you know, the community where they want?
Well, let me start here. So up till 17, till I was 17 years old, I didn't know what racism was. You know, I had white friends, you know, so I didn't know what racism was until I went to an all-white high school. That's when I first learned about racism. And then the more I began to navigate throughout Tulsa and some of the surrounding cities, it became clear to me that white folk just didn't like black folk. And for what reason, I didn't really know. And then, of course, you know, I started putting two and two together. Well, okay, this is why it happened down here. And so if you hear, you know, repetitive that this black man raped a white woman, this black man touched a white woman.
We're going to get to that in a minute. Go ahead.
You know, you'll start to believe that what these white folk, racist, white supremacists, white community are saying is true, but until you actually go through it and you start living it, the narrative is a lie. It's bogus.
Because what was the brother's name who was accused of doing this?
Dick Rowland.
Dick Rowland.
Yeah, Dick Rowland was accused of touching, fondling, raping a white woman. Her name is Sarah Page. Sarah Page was his wife.
Afterwards or before?
Well, they were lovers during the time.
1921, a young black male named Dick Rowland, who worked as a shoe shine boy in downtown Tulsa, went into the Drexel building where he had been given permission to get water and use the restroom. There was a young white girl named Sarah Page who was an elevator operator. And Dick Rowland every day would go into the elevator with Sarah Page. On this particular day, after the elevator doors closed and Sarah Page and Dick Rowland were alone in the elevator, a few moments later there was a scream, the elevator doors opened, Dick Rowland ran and was later arrested, and Sarah Page initially claimed that she had been assaulted.
Brown says Page never pressed charges, but authorities did, and the damage was done. By the end of the day, the rumor mill said Page had been raped.
As word spread, angry whites were determined that they were going to take matters into their own hands.
A large crowd of white residents gathered at the courthouse. They demanded Dick Rowland be lynched. How did the black community respond to that demand to lynch this young man?
They were willing to risk their lives. They knew that they would be risking their lives to help defend Dick Rowland. And thousands of whites gathered in front of the courthouse. A white man approached a black man with a gun. He said, "What are you going to do with that gun?" He said, "I'm going to use it if I have to."
The two men argued. There was a struggle over the gun. It fired. The white resident was shot. All hell broke loose.
But they eventually got mad.
So they probably got into a little scuffle or whatever, like couples do.
Yeah. Or they were just having fun in the elevator.
Yeah. And somebody seen that.
And somebody seen it, a white man or white men seen it. And of course back then, black men were not to smile, laugh, whistle, or even be in a relationship with a white woman. You get killed or lynched. And so that's how that started, because at the end of the day, there's proof that Sarah Page and Dick Rowland were married. They're trying to produce a marriage license. You got relatives on the East Coast, and I think they moved to Boston. So they're trying, or New Jersey, somewhere around there, but they're trying to get them to produce that. You got great granddaughters, you got great nieces and nephews, you got sons and grandkids of this couple. So that story is not being told, and that's where the racism really shows itself throughout my late teenage years to now. And I would say, to answer your question, that racism, Ku Klux Klan, white supremacy is so prevalent today, where you can't deny the hatred against black people right here and across America.
Yeah, man. So this whole thing happened over a lot. Over a lot. Yeah. And the people that stood the game, because I read some stuff about the person that owned the newspaper. Like they say he made a lot of money, and he went and started claiming some of the land that was burnt up. Yeah. Stuff like that. Some of the oil companies supplied. You said the oil company supplied some of the planes.
Yeah, Sinclair Oil.
Sinclair Oil.
I want to put it out there. Some of the Sinclair gas stations that you see today are the promoters and participators, if you will, who loaned their planes to these racist white mobs to drop cocktail bombs, turpentine, whatever, on these homes, on these buildings, and it burnt all 1,600, 2,000, you name it, umpteen hundred businesses. And they never recovered like once, before. 1905, 1908, when they first, O.W. Gurley, who's the founding father of Greenwood, historic Greenwood.
Did he make it? Did he survive?
Yeah, he survived, but no one.
What happened after that?
Yeah, he went off radar. Yeah, so tragic thing, but Tulsa Race Massacre is one of the worst. Still is a crime scene. No one ever got charged. The insurance companies, the Tulsa Police Department, the mayor, the newspaper, Tulsa World, they all had their hands to cover up the crime. And the way they did that was by calling it a race riot, not a race massacre. I've been in a race riot. Memorial High School, 1982. Yeah, right here in Tulsa.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been in like a full-blown race riot. That's a whole nother topic, but I know what a race riot is. No one got killed.
Right. So this was a military operation down there.
This was straight military. Straight plan. Because what a lot of people don't know is that there were military veterans, black World War I veterans, that went and got Dick Rowland out of jail. And when they got Dick Rowland out of jail, they basically came back. They had guns. And when that war started, the only thing that favored the white community in this race massacre was that we ran out of ammo.
You ran out of ammo. So we was handling our business.
We were handling our business.
In my community, among those survivors, they won the riot. They won it. Only till they brought airplanes in and dropped bombs and fire bombs and brought the National Guard in, could they subdue my people. That's the view from the black community, that airplanes and National Guard saved them white folks. We were winning.
Because you're dealing with veterans.
Yeah, but this came from overseas. They
right. So,
how y'all doing?
Yeah.
No, we good. We good. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're all right.
They weren't scared. They was
scared. We went to the jail or the courthouse with guns. And one of the white men said, "So what are y'all gonna do with those guns?" And one of the brothers said, "We're gonna use it if we have to." And one of them supposedly tried to grab the gun and pow. And that's where it started. Yeah.
So we drew first blood.
We're defending ourselves.
Defending ourselves.
So, you know, you can do comparison contrast.
Yeah.
Look at what's happening today. White militia, right wing, left wing, you name it. They carry guns openly. I'm talking about assault rifles at the state capitol, everything. But soon as the black man, oh man, we're a threat.
It's an issue. Yeah.
It's an issue. So if you're listening to this video, we are not a threat. We're just trying to protect our own, just like the white community has always protected their own. But yet they want to use us for their wars, and that's crazy. Because y'all have rape, pillage, stolen identity, everything. And all we're trying to do is get some integrity back.
From what happened in Tulsa, what's your stance on your Second Amendment right to bear arms? Do you think it's every black man's duty to have a firearm to protect their family?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we know that the Constitution wasn't written with us in mind, because we're still in the Constitution under Dred Scott law, right?
Yeah, 3/4.
We're 3/5 of a man.
3/5, my bad, 3/5, damn.
That's not even an animal. We're under an animal. Y'all look it up.
That was just so they can have more voting power.
Right.
They just gave us for the South.
So, you know, after the 1865 Emancipation Proclamation, we still wasn't free. Because even though we had the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, and all these different things, it was still in the Constitution for the Negro, as you read it, under the Dred Scott law, which was a slave who inherited his master or owner's property, but because he came in as a slave, they said no slave can own his master's property. But they changed laws. They changed the Constitution to fit what they had designed for the white man, the white community, and what supposedly their forefathers set up for them. And I mean, it's just corruption all the way down. This country was built straight on lies, corruptions, and built on the backs of slaves. And white corporate America don't want to deal with that, but the rooster has come to roost.
You mentioned white corporate America.
Yes, sir.
I see a sign in front of your store, reparations now,
Yes.
HR 40. Tell me about HR 40.
Okay, HR 40 is a law, added paperwork at the Constitution or the Congress right now that's being put into practice for the only race of people to get their so-called 40 acres and a mule or some type of reparations for the enslavement or descendant of being enslaved. And it seemed like when blacks rise up and they want to speak what is owed to them, not by just asking, but by demanding, there's always a problem. We're making issues and being confrontational. They didn't have that problem with the Asians when they put them in internment camps. They didn't have a problem with, and still don't have a problem with, the lands that they stole from the Native Americans. They're still paying royalties and mineral rights to the so-called Native Americans.
Didn't the Choctaw just won a situation?
Yeah, they won.
The state?
Yeah, and Cherokees are still fighting that situation because the freemen who were taken in as part of the indigenous people, that's black,
right.
They kicked them out. Cherokees kicked them out.
We getting it from all over, huh?
We getting it from all over. Okay, but again, America didn't have a problem helping the Jewish when Germany took them into the internment camps or just concentration camps, and they still paying the Jewish umpteen billions and trillions of dollars every year since 1933. The only people who have not received that restitution, retribution, whatever you want to call it, we just say reparations. Yeah. The only people in the entire planet that has not received any funds for the torment, for the rape, for the enslavement, for the misplacement, even taking the nationality away. It's the so-called African American, the black man, who was brought off those slave ships and severely got punished and almost as genocide to this day. Somebody got to atone for what happened down here.
Right. Especially here, because y'all got receipts down here.
Yeah, they got
receipts.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
And so now we're getting white Americans who are really concerned to get this thing fixed and cleaned up. And you know, it's a tough pill to swallow because they've been lied to. Yeah. But they got to understand that the only people that can end racism against us and what has happened to us for over 400, 500 years is white folk.
Yeah. Now there's a new movement going on. There's a new lawsuit that was filed, right?
Right.
For the families.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
boy, you up on it, ain't you?
Yeah, I seen that.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they hadn't do it. I was gonna start it. If they hadn't do it.
Yeah.
But see, what I learned was this was Johnny Cochran's last case. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
This was before Johnny Cochran passed away. He was working on something for the families of this to get compensated on a reparation type of situation. Well, he mysteriously, you know what happened to Johnny, but
yeah.
So this new lawsuit, you think it has a chance of getting some momentum and actually coming through?
Demario Simmons is representing 9 families in a lawsuit filed this week against Tulsa, Oklahoma, to, quote, repair the damage caused by the 1921 massacre that killed hundreds of black citizens and destroyed 40 blocks of Greenwood, an area also known as Black Wall Street.
If not, I think we need to make some noise about that.
We need to make some noise, but here's where the problem lies. Well, the problem lies that there's only a portion of those who are connected as descendants, you know, with the church being Vernon AME, is the last standing church with structure, Zion, Mount Zion, those 2 churches. But what about the descendants? I'm talking about descendants that don't know that there's a lawsuit, you know, that's out and that they can be a part of. See, there's more strength in numbers,
right?
You know, and so that's what we got to be careful of. And I'm not knocking the brother, the attorney who has filed for that lawsuit for the different descendants. We got 2 left now. We got 2 remaining survivors.
Survivors?
Yes, survivors.
Little kids in that.
When they were little kids, 104 and 106. One of them is my cousin's grandmother.
Man.
And the same one is a good friend of mine's grandmother. So, you know, we don't want to make it about dollars, but again, somebody has to atone for what they did down here.
I mean, 35 blocks. I mean, if you look at Tulsa today, the streets of Tulsa, you know, just like every other hood, you know, you got the young folks out here, they banging on each other. They don't know better.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with the economics, coming up poor, not having the resources to live the American dream.
Right.
Now you talking about 35 blocks that was wiped out, a whole economy that was wiped out. Had that not happened, they probably would never known the street life, because they would have something to fall back on. So now they starting with scratch or absolutely nothing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think the babies, you know, you might cannot do nothing for ones who already caught up in this mess, but for the babies, the ones that's coming up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think if we start now, you know, with see, my whole thing is I'm in the cannabis industry.
Okay.
And when you're talking about cannabis, a lot of people just thinking about just smoking marijuana.
Right.
But now, cannabis is it's called industrial hemp. You can make thousands of different products.
Right.
So I'm thinking you can teach these babies how to take that plant, process it, turn it into an economy. Hell, Tulsa was built on oil.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
all that were on lands of black folks.
I read about the little girl too, the 15-year-old.
Yeah, the world's richest black female.
She was doing it.
But she had to get away because I'm sure she was getting harassed.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we got some rain.
Yeah, so we gonna wrap this up, man. So listen, how can they get these T-shirts, man? You on the ground?
Okay, well, y'all see Black Wall Street T-shirts and souvenirs here. You can call 918-523-0608. Just go on online, Google Black Wall Street T-shirts or tees and souvenirs.
Listen, we gonna get this man on the ground because the world gonna be getting this product, bro.
Right.
We gonna put it out there. So, keep posting. We gonna come back with some more stuff soon.
Right.
And yo, it's good talking to you.
All right, you too,
know what I mean?
brother. I appreciate you coming by.
Yeah, definitely,
All right.
man.
All right, thank you.
Peace.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody pricey. Cost money, beat the charge money. Fast money, push the start money.